The air held an eerie thickness to it, quite a bit cool even for an early October evening. The sun had just set the clouds ablaze, and the sky was already beginning to darken in preparation for night. The determined youth paid his fare and stepped out of the taxi, despite his driver questioning his decision. He could hear the broken road grit against the tires as the cabbie slowly and gratefully left the man to his fate, leaving to pick up another fare. Sighing in both relief and disappointment, his former passenger pulled the flyer out of the pocket of his hooded sweatshirt. "Is this really the place?" he said to no one in particular, which was fitting, as no one was there to hear his particular inquiry. Much to his annoyance, the place couldn't be located on any of the online map sites, and it had taken him around an hour to flag down a taxi who knew where the address was located. Now that he was here, he began again to interrogate his memory for an explanation to his presence outside the large iron-locked gate. Looking at the flyer again, he was reminded. On it was a badly taken picture of an old house that was obviously needing some repair and painting. Above the picture was a rhetorical question, pleading the few who noticed it to take interest with the promise of financial gain. Unlike many pyramid-screen posters hanging from light poles around the town, this one made it clear that the work was needed to earn the promised wealth. That turned away most of the minority who had even glanced at it. It was a simple task, really, when one came down to it. The building had evidently fallen into disarray and needed at least some basic repair and upkeep, possibly even a complete restructuring. It was in need of a caretaker, and evidently the building's owners were fairly desperate, for they posted that no experience was necessary. This eliminated most of the professionals who deigned to give it notice. It was certainly a task requiring of their caliber of experience and skill would request it specifically, and compensation for their knowledge and craftsmanship would be given. To have been fated that one day, when the wind had torn a sheet from the pole and flung it into his face, that he received the sign he had been looking for. All the previous month he had been looking for local employment to no avail. But here was a new chance, if someone hadn't already gotten the position already. And so he called the provided number, and a tired feminine voice answered when he was almost about to hang up. Despite thinking it odd that a woman would be sleeping as late in the day as he called, he asked if they were still looking anyways. Thankfully they were, and he was able to set up an appointment of sorts. Well, really, she had just mumbled something about him coming in the evening of the next day and said goodnight before hanging up. Despite a minor amount of confusion, he was finally here, reevaluating his decision for the 13th time. Certainly the offer was vague, and the prospective employer sounded almost comatose, but he was running low on options. He turned his face up from the flyer and took a step closer to the gate. Time to take the plunge. Another step. Time to be a man. Almost there now. Time to earn the bacon. He stopped and looked back toward the woods, as if expecting them to close in, preventing his lead, should he take it. Seeing that they were still there, empty shadows of their glorious spring, their leaves decaying on the ground, he looked back at the gate once again. The gate itself was wrought iron, lightly rusted with small lichen beginning to take root on it. Within its subtle decorative flare lay a large B that was divided in half on each side of the split in the middle of the gate. A fairly modern locking mechanism was on one side of the gate, and tracing the cord from its housing, his eyes came to a small intercom recessed in one of the pillars that held the gate's hinges. Atop the pillar and its twin sat a hideously plump gargoyle, a grim visage upon their faces, as if deeming all intruders unworthy of entering their gate. Beneath the gaze of one opposite the intercom, the address number, engraved in tarnished bronze, could be read. 16 Haversham Avenue. This is the place, all right, he said as he folded the flyer back up in his pocket once more, its surface already wrinkled terribly from his indecisiveness. Looking more closely at the intercom and lock, he noticed that both were covered with rust and small pockmarks, the intercom speaker dangling from some of its own wiring. Thankfully, the lock itself was stuck in the open position. Rolling up his sleeve slightly, the youth pressed both hands against the gate and shoved with all his might to bring it open wide enough for him to walk through freely. As he entered and let his arms relax, the gate shut itself, its great hinges creaking under the strain and the lack of oil for an untold amount of time. Catching his breath, the man looked up, down the winding path before him at his destination. In awe at its size and the distance left before him, he dared to speak its name. Bloodstone Manor.